friends. One more time at Stories from the Road. I'm Dick Foth, and I'm back with my friend Brad Formsma to talk about the heart of loving, which is giving. And we pick up our conversation as we're moving along, understanding why we are able, why we should, why we can, how it works, all of those things. Here we go. So I'm fascinated, Brad. First of all, you have a podcast called The Wow Factor. And wow means...
Words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom. And you essentially talk to people who have, by almost any metric, achieved. They tend to be corporate leaders and so forth. Where did you come up with that idea? I mean, there are thousands of podcasts. We all, we get that, but...
Yeah, so after the last election, it would have been November of 2019, my son came in and said, hey, we should start a podcast. And he's a pretty sharp kid, but the we language was a little off. But he said we should call it the wow factor. We're moving around the country. We're meeting all these great leaders, and all I'm picking up on in the media is business is bad, and it's all about corporate greed. And yet we're meeting radically generous families on the weekly. I said, no, I don't want to do that. And he said, no, we'll call it the wow factor. And I said, I don't really have time. He said, well, I already ordered the equipment. It's coming tomorrow. So we weren't sure we were going to get past episode 10.
Did he use your credit card, that 149 swipe?
Yeah, he definitely had access. Yeah. But I'll tell you, he's a future thinker. He saw something, and what for us right away, it was about promoting, if that's the right word, the heart and life story of the different ways people can give and serve and live in their life and in their business. But we weren't sure we were going to get past episode 10. In fact, I think I'm episode 11 when he interviewed me because we were just trying to buy a week. And so it's gone on to 260 something.
260 something.
Yeah.
But these are folks like the
CEO of Southwest Airlines. But there's also you, and that's, that was to get your one. Grandfatherly voice. Well, I'm sitting here going, we're going to do another one of those because we're going to do Foth Part 2. But you know what? I kind of look at the podcast, and I think maybe you do this a little bit too. Somebody said to me one time, I don't know if I understand your podcast. Is it Christian? Is it business? Is it leadership? I said, it's art. It's a tapestry of people I like or people I'm intrigued by. My friend Martin Dingman, he makes amazing belts and puts a scripture without the verse inside of these great belts.
Yeah.
And I thought, I want to hear why is he doing that?
Yeah.
What drives him? Maybe I'll have a leading pastor rarely on.
Sure. Yeah.
But, because there's something about how they function and that I think would be fun. Sometimes it's a new author. Sometimes it's a real small little business guy.
Yeah. You did a couple with our friend Admiral Clark, who used to lead the Navy. Those were pretty strong, if I can use that language. I mean, good.
So let's go back to the 7 ways.
Right.
You shared a friendship.
Right.
We'd call that generous influence.
Okay.
So now it's on me. I get to go to Arizona and interview this stately admiral who he opens his mouth, and I hit the record button thinking we were going to do one episode, and it just kept going. And the goodness was so good. I'm like, this has got to be a 2-parter.
Yeah.
And what was really fun about that is he goes to CCV, which is a major church in Arizona, and the pastor didn't know that he had a admiral, a serious admiral, and you would say CMO, right?
CNO, Chief of Naval Operations from 2000 to 2005, second only in tenure to Arleigh Burke, who's sort of the iconic admiral in the U.S. Navy.
And so what I did was I told his pastor, I said, I really want to encourage you to come over to where we're recording at your church, because I was speaking there for the staff, and just sit down on an interview. There's somebody intriguing from your church that they had never met.
Sure.
And Ashley Woldridge, the pastor, he's going, are you kidding me right now? This guy employed 850,000 people, maybe, or under his command. I think maybe he knows something about leadership.
Just a bit.
Thank you again for that. What a podcast that made my eyes leak.
Well, and
especially that 9/11 conversation and where he was, and and I loved how he was so certain, and how he called the one guy who was doing the switchboard, and the guy wasn't quite getting it, and he said, "Hey, we're under attack."
You're talking about 9/11 now.
Yes. We're under attack. I think you should call this person, and we'll worry about the protocol later.
Yeah. And he was, I'm guessing this, 800 feet, maybe that, just around the corner from where the plane hit the Pentagon. He was on the southeast side of that, just right there. What's fun in talking to Vern, Admiral Clark, is that there are two sort of themes that land in many conversations, and one is the Lord numbers our days, and the other is that he charts our ways. And I was talking to him one day about maps. I said, just so in the map of your life, and he said, Dick, in the Navy, it's not maps, it's charts. There are no roads out there in the middle of the Pacific or in the Bering Sea, but there are charts for where things are and so forth. I'm intrigued by the fact that generationally, first of all, your son is, how old is Drew now?
23.
23. But he started hanging with you when you went on the road when?
15.
Yeah, 15. Because I remember him being with you when you spoke someplace. I'm sitting here thinking, it has to be Grandpa the bread guy, that when you were a kid, how old were you again?
10, 11.
10, when you were 10. He took you with him and did his generosity thing, his generous thing. It seems to me that as you've approached, so how do we get the spirit of generosity, the heart of generosity, into young hearts, malleable, touchable hearts? And so you have now created a curriculum for any school. It can be any school. It could be a public school, charter school, could be a private school, correct?
We're really focused on the charter and the Christian school right now.
Okay.
However, in the Philippines, the Christian programming works wonderful in their public schools.
Sure.
So
the approach to that is what? In terms of these are teaching the 7 things or the 38 feelings or whatever.
Yeah. Well, important to note, when my grandpa passed away, I found a little document that he wrote when I was 11 years old. I didn't get it until after. And it said, "Dear Bradley, Winston Churchill said you make a living by what you get, but a life by what you give. I thought this would be well worth remembering. Love, Gramps." And I think if you're a grandparent, parent, whatever, you think, handwriting, I can just text. There's something about do that. Even if they get it later, send a little note. I think we've lost that, and it means something. I keep every handwritten note that I get. Mm-hmm. And, because of our relationship with Southwest Airlines, I have gotten multiple handwritten notes from their CEO. I promise you, he's busy. But he took the time to say, hey, your kids' books are helping touch the life of my grandkids that are 7 and 9 and giving me some language and values to talk about.
So when I fly Southwest Airways, I can go on the movie section on the screen.
Exactly.
And go to the family part or the...
Yeah, it's very easy. When you go to the Southwest portal, which is free, you just go to TV series. And underneath that, there's a little section. It's right there called Southwest Content, and you get this picture, Generous Kids Book Club. So to your question about the programming in the schools, we realized that when you teach kids before the age of 12, especially between 9 and 12,
right,
they move from concrete to abstract learning. Yeah. And generosity is kind of an abstract concept. What do you mean I'm going to give something and get something back? Well, how does this all, what? It's good for me? What? It makes me less anxious? What's going on? But the power in that is that's also when a child is establishing their morals and values and worldview of things. So while I've spent a lot of my life talking and teaching older people who already have the resources, this research blew us away that what if we could teach the younger ones, to your question. So we started a program that said, let's teach gratitude at the beginning of every lesson, right? A grateful heart is a great place to start. So we have these kids all across the nation, all over the Philippines, taking 1 minute a day to think about what they're grateful for, and they can't do carryovers. So we teach them a little math along the way. You can't, hey, if you're grateful for food, family, and friends yesterday, let's find new. There's so much to be grateful for. And then we begin to bring scripture in and apply it with the one of the 7 ways, and then they get to go experience it with their peers in their class. And then they get to tell on each other in a good sort of way. Hey, I saw Dick helping Susanna with his friend Tommy. She fell off the merry-go-round, and Susanna doesn't know Tommy, but, because Dick and Tommy are friends, hey, Tommy, we need to help her. And on the way in, we heard Dick saying, Susanna, you're going to be okay. We're going to get to the nurse's station. And you know what? The teacher tells that story or hears about it from one of the kids. And then she just gets to ask the class, hey, which of the 7 ways did we see in that story? Oh, we heard generous words. You're going to make it. You're going to be okay. Hey, shared a friend. That's influence. What else? Hey, time. Okay, who else has got a story? And what we're learning is even the scoundrels, they kind of like how good it feels inside, in that warm feeling inside. And I don't want to miss this. In those lower grades, kindergarten through 2, we realized we needed some stories that would rhyme, and it would create a way for carpet time for teachers to read to the kids. And so Drew came to me one day and he said, we gotta do more. We gotta do kids books. I'm like, how are we going to do that? But what had already been put into motion is your daughter and my friend Susanna said to me, after Drew came to me with this thought, she said, in 4th grade, I think I prayed that I could write kids books. I said, well, when were you going to tell me this little secret? I said, Drew's over here trying to figure out. And so we put a team together, and now we have the Generous Kids Book Club, and we're fighting hard to teach values that last. And most of the time it's fun, but it's challenging. We have Jasper G, the first generosity giraffe, and we're finding that we've created a language connected with a scripture in the back.
Right.
For example, Jasper G and the Me Thinking Madness is book number 1. And so right away, there's the story of, yes,
I got to read that out loud.
You read it out loud, and you did great. And here's the story of a grandpa and a grandson giraffe.
Yeah.
And they get into this moment where they have to look at, am I being a big-hearted giver or a me-thinker?
Yeah.
Well, now parents later on, long after the book's been closed, can say, hey, Johnny, are you being a me-thinker or what? A big-hearted? What do you think you're? I'm being a me-thinker. Do you really want to be like Jasper? No, he didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
And of course, that all points back to then, where's God in this?
Sure. It's a fascinating thing. When you try to teach generosity, we have a friend, Barb Melby, now retired from teaching preschoolers. And about 4 years ago, maybe 5, I asked if I could go do a podcast with her preschoolers, 4-year-olds, essentially, mostly 4. And so I went to her place, sat in the school where she was, and I sat down on the little chairs. And so I asked the question, this is one of my favorite stories, what do you like best about Christmas? And in chorus, there were about 8 or 9 of them, they said, presents. I said, that's fun, isn't it? I said, do you really like getting presents? Yes, we like getting presents. And they had each brought a present to school to give to somebody else. And Barb said this was probably the first time that they had been asked to give something. They're used to getting presents, but asked to give something. It was interesting because they could just go pick one out when their name was called. And some of them were small and some of them were in big bags. And I thought that they would go for the big bags. But we were getting down to the end and several of the big bags were left. And I asked her later and she said, well, between themselves, they figured out what gift their friend brought, the friend they knew, even though it wasn't for them. That's what they did. But anyway, I said to him this thing, because I'm trying to get into the generosity thing. I said, well, isn't it great to be able to give a present and not just get a present? And 2 or 3 of the little ones, intimidated by the big guys, yes. And one little kid said, no way. And I think we may have even reprised that once or twice on our podcast, just because he was telling the truth, that I really like the receiving end of this thing. So
I love on the wow factor. I always ask, what's your wow? And somebody said one time, you got to start, and I think that's my encouragement for whoever was listening today. You pick up these 7 words, 7 ways, and you start. I miss all the time. I would never want to sit here and advertise that I get it right all the time. But I will say this, it affects your heart. I can spin out of a bad mood so fast, even over just a cup of coffee or a kind word. And, you mix gratitude into that, and it's like, it's going to be okay. Well, and, I travel enough to know that there's lots of reasons to get grumpy, or there's lots of things in life. And I just think that the generous life is the better life.
Well, we're sitting here in my house having this conversation, and this would be a good time to take opportunity to thank you, but also to thank Richard Flores, who's sitting over here to my left and your right, recording this. Now, Richard has been doing this for however many years, a long time, a bunch of years. And today he came, and we haven't had any snow here, essentially, for this winter. Until just today. We might have gotten a dusting the other day. So 2, 3, 4 inches, depending on where you were. And Richard comes to my door and indicates to me that he just got to work out because he shoveled my driveway. It's not a narrow driveway. He just shoveled my driveway. And I'm thinking, well, boy, that's going to cost me. No, I didn't think that at all. I just thought, what a kind thing to be able to do. And I try desperately not to call him on weekends, but I do not try hard enough. Because I could probably call him 3 out of 4 weekends. I just got this question, or can you do this? And he's always been very generous and kind in that way. And ever since I've known you, you've been kind. You have given me things and time and encouragement and resources, and you helped essentially with the production, with the funding for this little audiobook that we came out with recently. And I just want to thank you to however many people are listening. This may be 13 people in Southern California and a grandmother from Minnesota, but whoever you are, I just want you to know that in a real sense, Formsma put his money where his mouth is. But more than that, I just think that the attitude that you bring to the enterprise, whatever it is in and of itself a gift. even when you're in hard times, and all of us have those, it's still that idea about how do I look to the other really comes through. Years ago, we were in Mexico. We had taken about 30 university students from University of Illinois to Mexico. And we were in a very poor town, and a young pastor there, Joel Cañones, had, as a young man, been sentenced to, I think it was 19 years in prison in San Quentin for a variety of things. Long story short, he ends up being thrown out of the country after 11 years or something, and comes to faith. His mother had been praying for him all these years. He comes to faith. But he was in this little town, and his spirit was such. He would say things like, "You never know when you're going to be the answer to somebody's prayers." Stuff like that, right? And he told us a story about a person who was sick, but heard about somebody else who was sick, and went to pray for them. And in that process of going to pray for them, he himself found healing. That whole river of giving that you're talking about just is this basis for all the other good things that happen.
Yeah. Amen. By the way, your illustrious producer, Richard here, he has kind eyes, doesn't he? You look at him and you're just like, he's just, you can tell he's a giver.
Yeah, that's right.
He was over there, he didn't want the attention, but I think he had fun giving that driveway shovel.
Well, I hope so. I had fun
Did you just see that?
It. Yeah.
Yeah, he just put his thumb up. Yeah. The things you don't catch when you're not videoing.
Brad, thanks a million for taking the time to be with us on this podcast. We might need to do this again.
It was an honor. I loved the invitation when it came through, and I'm so thankful for our friendship. I think I should close by saying you were very generous with your time when we first got introduced. I could take you to my back patio in Ada, Michigan, looking over Amway several miles away. We had a brief call, and you said, "Where do we go from here?" And I said, "I don't know." And you said, "Well, I have an idea. Why don't you come out to Denver International Airport? I'll pick you up and we'll spend a day together and see what happens." And I said to Laura, "I'm going to Denver." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "To see what happens." And I think that was the beginning of our friendship. I showed up wet behind the ears, starting a ministry, and we just talked. And so thank you for that day and subsequent times that we've been together.
I have a picture of you standing on top of Half Dome with Mark Batterson. You went out and hiked with him, right?
I did.
I have a confession to make. I hiked Half Dome with my father when I was 16, and up at the top, and we had a little lunch, and it can be frightening. I mean, you're walking up the last bit, hanging onto cables and stepping on 2x4s that they've bolted into the. But I do have a confession to make, because they had a little lake. It's no longer there. It's gone. Called Mirror Lake, that would mirror Half Dome down. And I had a hard-boiled egg, and I just heaved it over the side to be able to say that I threw a hard-boiled egg into. And that's probably not the best way to end this podcast, to talk about that. But I'm giving up my secrets now.
I'm picturing it, and I remember that picture, and I would do a lot for Mark Batterson, but I won't be going on any more of his adventures. I literally thought I was going to die. I went with my son, Dan,
yes.
And he was younger, and his legs were shorter, and he got up and down fine.
Yeah.
But I didn't conserve water, and we were using the filter thing, but I was drinking out of the stream. I was getting delirious. I wasn't sure I was coming all the way down. So I said, "Batterson, I love you, but your adventures are a little out there for me, buddy."
You renamed him Shackleton, the guy who got stuck in the ice. Thanks a million, Brad, for being with us. God bless.
Thanks
for all you have done and continue to do and encourage in other people. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today, friends. What a wonderful chat with our friend Brad. I pray, I hope that you will have a wonderful Valentine's weekend, that those that you love dearly will know that from you as you give of your time, your talent, your treasure, your attention, all of those things that have been chatted about the last couple of podcasts. Thank you again for listening. Thanks for subscribing. And for those of you who have reached out to pick up the book, Stories I Love to Tell, that's on Audible and Amazon, as they say down in Australia, good on you. Hope you enjoy those stories and your hearts are uplifted by them. That's it for now. This is Dick Foth, grateful on this day for the privilege of being able to think about giving, plan on giving, and doing it. That's it for now. God bless. Bye-bye.